Evil Slothman here, back for another vid. Yes, it's been like a week. There's a good reason for this. I have an excuse. I'm back at my parents' house. I'm flat sitting at the moment, really, for the whole week, or the whole 2 weeks. So I'm back at my parents', and so I've not been really at the house, really. Yeah, you see Morag here. Yeah, I have to look after my mum and dad's dog. Morag. Take her for walks and everything. So yeah, that's why there was no videos on Thursday, and I completely forgot about that. Right. So, tonight, what I thought I'd do is something I haven't done in a while. Because I've been back home and Mum and Dad have Sky, I was able to watch Night of Champions last night. So, today, I think I'll go over my review of Night of Champions. And I will start this by saying some of the matches I kind of I was tired. It was like 3 in the morning and I was starting to drift off. There's some bits are a little bit hazy. Or some bits I was just plain bored. It was a so-so pay-per-view overall, but we'll get to that. Right, the first match was Kofi Kingston versus Dolph Ziggler. And before that, they'd have Vicky Guerrero comes out and basically she gets her cheap heat by going like, excuse me, which it works, it's effective, so why stop doing it? But I don't know, I'm not too keen on this whole let's pick on Vicky Guerrero thing. It's like, it's been a while since they just keep on going all these things about these fat jokes and these ugly things, and really, honestly, she must be made of thick stuff, some very stern stuff, because to take that abuse week in, week out, and even if you know it's meant to be scripted, that's got to dent your self-confidence and self-worth, and I really don't like that at all. I don't like how they keep on making her have all these boy toy kind of things as well, where she's like sleeping with every person they're trying to like push. So first it was Edge, and then it was I can't remember, there was somebody last year, and then now it's Dolph Ziggler. So Dolph comes out, and I don't know what it is, but an IC belt looked like really new. It's like they took a little bit of Brasso to it and shined it up real nice for this Night of Champions thing. It looked a little bit nicer than it has in recent years, and maybe it's just because the HD picks it up and makes it look a little bit better. But so he comes out, and then Kofi comes out, and the match, it was okay. The thing I say, Dolph Ziggler is actually quite a competent wrestler. He can wrestle, technically wise, he can hit all the moves and everything, and it looks pretty good. The problems start to last when he's trying to get reaction from the crowd. He's got no storytelling ability to really get the crowd involved, and that showed. Because for great chunks, well, let's say this whole pay-per-view, the crowd was quite dead, apart from maybe high spots or the main event people. So Ziggler wins because they put up this whole thing that if Ziggler had basically gets himself counted out or disqualified, he'll lose the belt. He's been ducking people, so if he's looked like he was going to lose the belt, he'd get himself disqualified or get himself counted out, and so he would retain the title. So this was a way to counteract that. And then you had Vicky at the end, and she was about to slap Kofi, and if the referee had saw it, he would have lost the belt. But he didn't. He stopped her and then hit his finisher and pinned Kofi, and he pinned him clean. So if you've pinned him clean, you've pinned the face there, the feud's basically over. And supposedly, from what I hear, that match has been playing every few weeks on SmackDown, so everybody's a bit sick of it anyway. So probably a better thing to have new blood for Kofi and that, new blood for both Kofi and Dolph. The second fight, I have this all on my Twitter. I was tweeting this all last night. So if anybody wants to go on my Twitter, it's just Evil Slothman on Twitter. I changed it last night. It used to be Mr. Pancho, and I switched it last night. So let's see. Alright, yes, okay. Next match is CM Punk versus The Big Show. Now, I was really disappointed with this match. It was really short for what it was, and they really just shoved CM Punk under the bus. It was in Chicago, which is where CM Punk's from, so he was always going to get a quite big reaction, and everybody was chanting his name, and he was like, CM Punk. He's a massive heel, but nobody cares. And they came out, and basically CM Punk has to do his promo to get his heat on the crowd, so they're all booing him and cheering the Big Show. And the promo was good, it's just that nobody bought it. The minute he stopped, like, while he was doing the promo, everyone was booing, and the match started, back to cheering CM Punk. So, it didn't effectively offend enough people to keep them not watching it, so it was annoying in that sense. They're going back to this playfulness with the Big Show as well. So he's come back, he's wearing this bandana and this big shirt and everything. It reminds me of that time, what was it, about 2000, where he was like dressing up as like Hulk Hogan and other wrestlers and everything. He was just having fun, and that was the way he was doing it. It's like that way when they play it face. He's meant to be like this cheery guy, and honestly, it suits his personality quite well, but there's not much you can do with him because of his size. And the way I would have had that match work out would be to exploit the submission better, because they'd had that whole thing was CM Punk would go for this Anaconda Vice, which is what he had when he first started in ECW. Well, WWE ECW. I still don't count it as ECW. But when he first debuted, they had him use this Anaconda Vice. And it was like an armbar submission. He's like, he bent the arm, and it was like he was hooked on there, and it was like that. And I had that as a submission. And that would be a really good way to actually disable the big man, because he couldn't go for the GTS, because there's no way in hell CM Punk was lifting Big Show. They could have really worked on this arm. He could have really gone to weaken the arm, and like there'd be a dual factor, because then he couldn't go for the knockout punch. And that would have been an effective way of booking it if you wanted to make Punk still look strong. But no, he got hit by the knockout punch and was basically pinned out in about less than 5 minutes. The only decent spot I thought was Big Show was lying on the mat outside, and CM Punk jumps over the top rope and does like a swanton onto the mat, which actually looked cool. I think he buggered his neck, or bloody shunted it a little bit, because he was holding it for a fair bit afterwards. It could be good selling, but I doubt it. The way he was holding it, it did look like it stung him quite a bit. Right. So after that, they've been promoting all the other people all night. So they're promoting Wade Barrett, and they're promoting Randy Orton and everything, and all about this. But really and honestly, you know what they're going to say. They're trying to say, okay, well, everyone could win and everyone couldn't. But next match was The Miz versus Bryan Danielson. I refuse to call him Daniel Bryan. That is just... But it was... this was my pick for match of the night. And it really was one of the better told stories. It went with like a really kind of classic match. Would you stop it? And it starts off with like them feeling each other out, going into like headlock holds and everything, just to feel each other out, which has not been done in a while, but it's just kind of like nostalgic for me, because it's how a lot of matches, when I started watching the WWF in like 92, 93, they would start off with these like headlock feelers, and then you had The Miz work on his arm, and this is the first time I've really seen Miz do a lot of technically moves, like submission moves, like wear opponents down, wear a body part and everything. And it was quite effective. It's like he'd really not shown this much before. Most of his way he got over was his promo abilities, getting over with the crowd, his psychology and that. But no, he was actually really good technically last night. And there was a really good spots in that, and he was working completely in the arm. He did a shoulder breaker. I can't remember the last time I seen a bloody shoulder breaker. He done this, he sat on the top rope while Bryan Danielson was like, did the crotch shot, and he's on the top rope, and he's just dangling there. And then he does a clothesline off of that. I thought, this has been quite impressive from The Miz. Bryan Danielson was selling it really well. He did some nice suicide dive out to the out to the announcer's booth as well. Completely caught that. Was selling the arm all the way like a pro he was. And then he has this, he hooks in the finisher. It's a label lock, I think he calls it. And it looks like crippler crossface without really calling it a crippler crossface. It is. Apart from the legs are in a different position, he like holds them through instead of actually grasping, hooking it. But it's near enough. Think of a crippler crossface, and that's basically what it is. And so the Miz taps out, and we have a new United States champion. So there we go. The crowd was actually really into this match, especially near the end. Because it was a slow start, they weren't there to begin with, but they built it up. And by the time that he tapped out, it was really quite hot. The Miz, well, now will probably be getting pushed up the way he is. He's got the Money in the Bank thing, so he'll be fine. He'll come out, he'll come out tonight on Raw, and he'll do some thing on the mic. He'll get all his heat back, and then he'll be going on about using the Money in the Bank. He'll be fine. It'll be good to see where Bryan Danielson is going for the defense. It could be against Miz's NXT opponent. He's NXT rookie from season 2. Could be there. Was it Alex Riley, I think? That could be an interesting dynamic to do as his first defense. But yeah, there we go. I'll have to keep on looking at my Twitter. It's like, let's see the order and everything. Let's see. Okay. Oh, yes. I started this off, I went, Diva match. Botchamania. But yeah, that's pretty much what you expect from from a Divas match. Even with some of the more competent ones like they had tonight. Because I had Melina versus... Oh, what's her flipping name? Michelle McCool. So they've had this Michelle McCool and Layla as this kind of beautiful people ripoff. But they have a quite good dynamic. I was watching it on SmackDown. They do seem to have like a good chemistry on the camera and everything. But they're putting dissent between them two because Michelle McCool had kind of cheated her way into defending the women's title. Because they both equally own it, or they both won it. I don't know exactly what happened there. But they cut the women's title in half. Well, it was like a toy version. It looks like one of the replicas. Because there's no way in hell they'd do that to the real belt. But they come down, it's just like this really crappy, like, jagged edge kind of thing to the belt. And like, so they're carrying the belt and everything. And you've got the unification match, because it's got Melina comes out with the Divas title. Divas title, so my first thought is, they've unified the tag belts, they've unified the women's belts. Are they going to go back and just unify all the belts? Because that's the way it's looking at the moment. It could be just the fact that they don't think it's worth having 2 titles for each brand for tag teams and women's match, and possibly that's so. But I wouldn't be against them unifying every belt again, because that having 2 world titles was completely pointless. Especially the way they absolutely just shat on the world heavyweight title on Night of Champions. But that we'll get to that. But yeah, it was a lumberjack match. They had all the other divas plus Layla and everything round the side, and they sold some spots. For the first few minutes, they never really went out to use the lumberjacks, but then they did, and then it looked like Melina had hurt herself again, and you're thinking, oh good grief, that woman has no luck whatsoever. Then they had kind of like a botched spot off the top rope, and they both swung them to the outside, and then the lumberjacks started attacking Michelle McCool. So when they did that, Melina gets back in the ring, Layla jumps her, showing the descent was all a ruse, and basically Michelle gets back in, and then pins her, and Michelle McCool is now the undisputed women's champion. I think because Layla is part of one half of the women's championship, they're both the partners again, in that they have maybe 1 title each. I don't know the way it works, but you've got to have that descent completely, and then have a complete women's champion. which they probably might do at Survivor Series. I can't see them doing it for Hell in a Cell. But alright, we're about halfway. I'll probably do a second part and put that up in a second. So this is Evil Slothman